authentically peculiar, authentically peculiar, authentically peculiar.
Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. Welcome to Authentically Peculiar with Marcia, Season 3. I am so elated that we are going to be able to interview multiple guests as we are discussing the year of self. During this year, we're going to talk about financial wellness, mental wellness, emotional wellness, the journey to authenticity, overcoming trauma, and so much more. So stay tuned. Go ahead, like, subscribe, share, and even comment on Authentically Peculiar with Marcia on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, you can check it out on Apple, iTunes, and Spotify. Take good care. We'll see you.
We go.
Welcome back to Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. I am so excited. You all know how I am. I'm really funny about who I bring before the audience. And I was sharing with Kelly that she is one of the individuals that I moved my fear. Y'all know I have to be authentic out of the way in order to reach out because she truly has words of empowerment and encouragement, and really giving yourself the opportunity to begin living again is what I see. So, Kelly, thank you so much for your yes and coming to Authentically Peculiar with Marcia.
Thank you so much for having me, Marcia. I am so honored and excited. When you are someone who has created a platform, whether that's on any social media space, if that's in any kind of media, TV media, or wherever that may be, when someone then provides and extends an opportunity for you to come into their home, which is where their platform resides, it's one that I take very seriously and am honored. So I'm very grateful to be here in your home and this platform that you have created. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you so much. So, I'm going to introduce you all to Kelly officially and let you all know that Kelly Michelle, she's a little old school, a little new school, but she is a chameleon as far as I can tell because she knows how to blend and move and weave and bring along others into her space. She loves to see people win. She was raised in the Midwestern part of the country, but she lives on the East Coast. And she's had her introduction in Southern US towns, big and small. Currently, she's living a beautiful life with her husband as a bonus mom to beautiful souls, and truly a gift that she is grateful to be able to experience. It's a 25-year executive administrator. Her spirit of excellence is demonstrated with her ability to be a liaison between corporate executives as well as the public while interacting with cross functional departments internally and streamlining operations. Additionally, she operates in that capacity as an executive administrator. She's also had the privilege of walking alongside other amazing people, 15 years as a pastor and ministry leader, as well as enjoying people wherever they are. She loves to be in a good place of challenge and make them to dream more in the challenges that she extends. She desires to assist others and undergird the online community as she's developed through several social media platforms. Her name on all her social media sites are curated by Kelly Michelle. That was the first thing that popped out for me. It's like, wow, you created, you curated a space that represented you, not based on what everybody in society said it had to be, but specifically about you. And I think that's empowerment within itself. She does hold a bachelor's of business administration degree, graduated no less magna cum laude. But most importantly, exactly, she lives with passion for people and considers it a privilege to be a voice of mentoring and influencing others in their lives. Her overarching desire is to help people curate the life of their dreams. She's not trying to get you to be molded in what society has said is okay, but I'm gonna let her talk to you a little bit more about that, because the real truth is part of where she is, she's saying be you. That's the thing, Kelly, that I love about all of your social media. It's always just be you.
Mhm. Absolutely. And thank you for the very kind intro. I have moved through a lot of spaces in my life. So my father went into ministry as a pastor when I was 15 or 16. I can't recall,
Uh-huh.
one of the two. And so there was a whole life before my father went into ministry. And then, our world shifted. Home was still the same because my father is very much a man of integrity, but our world shifted from his executive corporate engineering world to the ministry world, which we had always served in church, but it was different in serving in church and then being on the pastoral side of the house.
Yeah.
So as he matriculated throughout his career when I was younger, because I'm an only child, uh, we lived in all kinds of big cities and small towns. And then once he went into itinerant ministry, meaning he would move around throughout the years, we would experience a lot too. So on my family side of the house, I've experienced different worlds and so many different beautiful souls and challenging personalities and all of the things.
Yeah.
And then in my educational and corporate space, I've interacted with, my grandfather was a janitor who then worked his way up to owning a janitorial company. This was my father's father.
Nice.
And so my grandfather really raised us such that, baby girl, you speak to the cleaning crew the same
Mhm.
way with kindness that you would the CEO and everybody in between. And so, as I've matriculated through life, I have come across some very interesting individuals and personalities, some more
Uh-huh.
challenging than others. But I'm really grateful for the opportunities that I have had. And that really is what led me to Curated by Kelly Michelle, because I wanted to encourage people, because I had this
Mhm.
cornucopia of people that I had interacted with and connected with throughout my life, that I saw that it really was possible for you to march to the beat of your own drum, to make your own lane. you know, where we are, Marcia, I think is a beautiful space. I was actually talking to a
Yeah.
girlfriend of mine this morning where we're having conversations now about menopause, and we're having conversations
Mhm.
about what does life after 40 look like. I feel like in previous generations it was just kind of this abyss.
Yeah,
You
well,
just
they wouldn't even talk about their age. They wouldn't tell their age.
Yes.
We
Yes.
are literally shouting our ages from the rooftops, like, "I'm
We are.
55." "Okay, and your point."
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
real open conversations about what our bodies are going through, what our emotions are going through, being in safe and vulnerable places that
Yeah.
you don't feel judged. That's the
Yes.
beauty, I think, of our seasoned lives now. We're not so consumed with
Mhm.
how people are going to see me. Like when I was a pastor's wife, you had to have on that hat
Oh
and
yeah.
you have to sit upright, and I know for me it would be extremely frustrating because it's like I have a message. Don't worry about my clothes. Don't
Mhm.
worry about my hair. Listen to the message. And so hearing you as you are matriculated throughout the life from corporate America to having a father as the head of an organization of a church, and then still, I'm sure, having to find you.
Mhm.
How did that work?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I'm sure, I didn't know that you were a pastor's wife, and so that space is a totally different world altogether. There's a lot of expectation, there's a lot of
Mhm,
scrutiny, there's a lot
mhm,
of inner conversation, kitchen
mhm.
table talk, that others
Yeah.
aren't a part of, and I can certainly identify with that being a PK, being a pastor's kid. You live very much a fish in a bowl life, and
Mhm.
there is, even though it's not spoken, there's an expectation, there's an unwritten and unspoken expectation that you
Mhm.
are the premier example
Mhm.
for, if it's your spouse or if it's your parent, that what that individual is preaching on that microphone, the expectation is you are the embodiment of it. And the challenge with that is it does not give you, in many instances, I will say, it does not give you the opportunity to really be you,
It
and
doesn't.
even the opportunity to discover you. So, to the point of
Mhm.
your question, um, I was in ministry for 15 plus years
Mhm.
and then decided, I believe I have done the work that I have been called to do for
Mhm.
others.
Yeah.
And now I want to do the inner work for me.
Yeah.
And I lived in Maryland at the time. I quit my job.
Mhm.
This was after much counsel and, with
Right.
wise counsel and strategy and planning and putting
Mhm,
everything in place
mhm.
and all the things. Sold my house and quit my job, and I was single at the time, packed up my dog, and we, moved down south because I wanted to make a very geographical and physical declaration to me, not to
Yeah.
anybody else, because most people didn't even know that I had moved. Declaration to me that now it's my time. I
Yeah.
have grown up as a PK. I've grown up serving in ministry even before my father was a pastor. And I have served in ministry myself. And the role that I have as an executive assistant is the one that is also serving executives.
Yeah.
And so I've been in service for a long time. And I said, I want to do this for me. I want to figure out who Kelly is, because once I got to the South and started dating, the question I couldn't answer that I kept getting asked by guys was, "So, what do you like to do for fun?" I had no answer.
I was there.
And
I
are
was there
you?
when I got divorced, I
Yeah.
literally stood in the floor and said, "God, I don't know who I am. I
Mm,
don't know me without this title. I don't know me without the heaviness of this expectation." So I had to go on that journey.
yeah.
I had to get to know Marcia outside of all of the labels. So I was there with you. I understand fully. Yeah.
But do you know, Marcia, I would imagine for your listeners, this community and this tribe that you have curated, that there can be a lot of identification, whether
Mhm.
that's now your child or your children are out of the house, you're an empty nester,
Yeah.
and that's been your primary focus.
Mhm.
Or if you're shifting from maybe a corporate space to an entrepreneurial space,
Mhm.
you're used to that check hitting every 2 weeks, or the 1st
Mhm.
and the 15th, and now you have to reinvent and redefine and figure out who you are. If you have a spouse that,
Yeah.
has transitioned, or you have a parent that you've been taking
Mhm.
care of, there's so many different instances where we find ourselves, particularly as women,
Yeah.
in spaces where we're having to redefine ourselves, and so
And
it's a
and know
beautiful
that
thing.
it's okay to
Mhm.
redefine yourself. As a therapist, I have clients of women in their 50s not knowing who they are, and they're
Yeah,
struggling with releasing the labels
yeah.
that they can find themselves. And that's something that I see that you actually encourage is get to know you. Spend
Mhm.
that time getting to know who you are. I often challenge clients and say, take the labels off. Who exactly are you? Give me some adjectives to define and describe you. Most can't.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that is the part that I'm grateful for that I can help bridge over um, for others to really be empowered and live in their authentic space. We could talk about this all night because it really is so very empowering. And the truth is, I don't know too many women who our stories aren't similar. Not necessarily going through the church and things of that nature, but that lost state that I need to find. So
Yeah.
let's jump in because one of the things that I'm so excited to talk to you about is giving yourself that permission to start over. Then you talked about dating, but then you bumped into the love. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I was telling one of my girlfriends this morning that I was catching up with. She said, you really have a good one." I said, "I really do.
Mhm,
I really am so grateful for him." We came from two different backgrounds, two different upbringings, two
mhm,
different life experiences. I had not been married before.
okay.
He had and was divorced. I had not had children, and he had. And so, at the trajectory of the paths of our lives, although I really believe we are two souls that were intended to be together,
Mhm,
how our lives played out looked different.
yeah.
And so, as I was mentioning earlier, sold the house, sold the car, moved down south, and said, okay, I'm going to make this is going to be the Kelly era. This is going to be the
Mhm,
era of Kelly.
mhm,
And I started dating, and I had been off of the dating scene. And I don't know if I've ever really been on the dating scene because I've
uh-huh.
been in relationships with guys who wasn't really like dating. They were usually
Yeah,
guys I met at church, truth be told.
yeah.
So it wasn't really like dating scene dating, but so I was pretty great. I was pretty naive. And so
Okay.
but I was determined to learn
Mhm.
some on the job training and dated some very interesting gentlemen,
From colored.
of a rainbow
A
of
rainbow, uh-huh.
of guy, but it was really I enjoyed it because I was really learning more about me
Yeah.
than I was about them. Things that these preset notions that I had of must-haves, not all of them
Mhm.
were must-haves or things I had never considered, like, "Ooh, girl, that needs to be a must-have."
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so I really learned a lot about me, and I met him. I had done online dating off and on, and I did meet some good guys. They just weren't a great match and connection for
Right.
me. And
Mhm.
not even necessarily anything again about them. It was really me learning me.
Mhm.
And I went to a young Black professionals mixer one night, a mutual friend of ours was having. I was
Uh-huh.
tired, Marcia. I did not feel like going. It was on a Thursday night. It was like, I got one more day till the weekend. I'm tired, child. I'm tired. I said, let
Uh-huh.
me drag myself on over here because such and such will not be happy with me because I said I would come.
Right.
And I met my husband, and I remember I was have a conversation with this other gentleman for a good
Mhm.
portion of the night, and he went to the bathroom, and my husband sees my now husband sees the opportunity. I was standing at the bar, had a martini glass that had shrimp and grits in it. Honey, I was hungry. I was tired. I was hungry. So I was tearing them shrimp and grits up. And they were good too, don't get me wrong. And
Uh-huh.
he slid this napkin across the bar and he said, "It looks like you're going to need this." And that was his introduction conversation.
Wow.
And we talked until the place closed. And he walked me to my car. He invited me out the next night. And the rest really was history. Um,
Beautiful. But it
we,
took you getting to know you.
mhm,
Yeah. How
yeah.
important do you think it is before I just finished with a client literally before we jumped on and going through the dating scene and I said, "Are you really ready? Do you know you in this dating scene?" How important is that?
It's vitally important. I have a few girlfriends that are walking through similar spaces as your client that you just mentioned. And I always tell them all the time, girl, get a roster.
Yeah,
Get a roster. I am a strong believer
I
in
love
getting a
that.
roster. And the reason is because I feel like when it's one on one and you don't really know you, you can very easily become codependent or so connected to that one
Mm.
person where you're so like that person becomes your emotional resource
Ooh,
because and if they don't call, if they don't text, if they don't really respond, because the dating thing is the dating scene. You're kind of
right.
figuring it out and they're figuring you out. And I do think to answer your question, it's really vital to know you. I actually encourage the roster though because I think it helps you get to know you. And you're
Mm.
not solely invested in this one person, but it's like okay, like I had a roster and I'm not trying to brag. I couldn't remember these gentlemen's name. I was calling people the wrong names. So I had a roster and I had a bench. I had literally the MVPs. I
Mhm.
had the travel team.
Mhm.
I had the ones who never even got a jersey. They got fitted, but they just didn't stay around long enough to even get the jersey delivered. Um, and it helped me though learn me because you're also in conversation with people. So
Right.
you're continually engaging in conversation. And so you're learning yourself as you're sharing who you are to other people. So I think it's really important, but I think it's important from the perspective of I'm really looking to learn about me first
Yeah.
as I'm entertaining conversation with potential suitors. So I think the both are important from my opinion, in my opinion.
One of the things that you said that's really important is well, you said a lot that's really important, but two of the things that really stood out is one, don't become emotionally dependent while you're working on dating because you really set yourself up for disappointment because you're dependent on this person and they're like you're not all that to me, right?
Mhm,
And then the other thing you said, listen, it is okay while you're dating to have this roster
mhm.
because you're getting to know not only yourself, but you're getting to know other people. This isn't a,
Yeah,
I'm seeing you now, we're exclusive immediately.
absolutely. Absolutely. I do think that particularly, this is a very general statement,
Uh
but
huh.
particularly as women, we tend to want to gravitate and kind of lock the person down. I've
Mm-hmm.
got this one suitor and I'm going to lock him down. I'm going to lock him in. And I get that. I do. But I also think if we look from a perspective of, but I don't know if you're worthy of my time and energy and resources and conversation. I need
Mm-hmm.
to figure out if, and that's not to be disrespectful.
Right.
I just need to figure out if this is something that you can pay the bill on,
That
that
part.
you can pay the bill on my energy, that you can pay the bill
Mm-hmm.
on my time, my conversation, my thoughts, my wisdom, my
Mm-hmm.
care. I want to make sure that you have the ability to be able to do that. I remember when my husband and I were dating, and he would text me all the time throughout the day
Mm-hmm.
initially. And I remember him asking me, like, so why does it take you so long to respond to my text messages? Like, well,
Mm-hmm.
number one, I am busy. I do have a really demanding job. And so I can't always be in communication throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, we have not reached the stage yet where you are a priority as far as my response time. My response
Mm-hmm.
time at this point, at that point when we were dating, was 5 hours. I will
Mm-hmm.
respond within 5 hours. As we
I like that.
continue on, then that response time will get shorter and shorter
Mm-hmm.
and shorter. Now, when he's a star and even if my phone's on do not disturb, his messages come through. But
Right.
he's to a certain extent and to a great extent, he's earned that
Mm-hmm.
by his actions, by his effort, by we did 10 months of pre-engagement therapy before we got engaged. He was very committed to that work.
Mm-hmm.
So he's very much earned that immediate response just because of the gem that he is. But until people get to that point, this is not a space that I can allow you to reside in
Mm-hmm.
until I'm sure that you're able to really handle this space.
And typically, what I tell anyone dating, male or female, listen, dating is an exchange of energy. And you
Mhm.
summed it up so well. can you pay the price of my energy? I'm not looking for you to pay my bills. I'm not looking for
Yep.
any of it. My energy is really my most valuable possession. And
Yes.
I need to know, can you handle my valuables? Or will you
That's
let them burn?
good.
Mhm.
Oh, that's good, Marcia. I like that. Can you handle my valuables? Because everybody isn't able to.
Right. And a lot of times I think that we move in spaces of trying to be in a relationship based on what we're seeing everybody else do. I know there was this big thing that was, saying, Sierra, give us the prayer that you said for Russell. And it's like, are you Sierra though? Is your guy going to be Russell?
Yeah,
That prayer may not work for you. What's your value?
yeah.
Can well, one, here's a question. How how important is it for you to understand your own value?
It's incredibly important because here's the thing that I often say, and I've said for a number of years, when it comes to luxury brands,
Mm.
if we just stick in the category of handbags,
Mm-hmm.
you will never see Chanel, Prada, Gucci, Hermes. You will never see those brands on a clearance rack
That
because those brands understand there will be those that will pay this dollar amount. And
part.
so, because
Mm-hmm.
we understand our value, we will never devalue ourselves and voluntarily place ourselves on the proverbial clearance rack.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise, in the automotive space, you will never see commercials for some vehicles
Right.
because there is a particular group of people
Mm-hmm.
who are well aware of those type of automotive vehicles and who can afford, to the point that we were talking about earlier, that can afford all of the costs that
Mm-hmm.
come along with having the beauty of it, the elegance of it, the horsepower of it, the name,
Yeah.
brand, and recognition of it. And so I think it's incredibly important. It's got to start inside of you because
Yes.
if not, if I can't tell you what my value is, if I am unable to articulate why your consistency, why clear and mutually respectful communication and all of the things that are really important to me, if I'm unable to articulate that, then you will determine what is valuable. And likely what's valuable to you may not be as valuable to me. So
Exactly.
I think it's incredibly important.
Yeah, I so agree with you. I have a sign on my desk that says, know your worth and then add tax.
Yes, I love that.
Because the truth is no one else can actually decide your worth
Yeah.
except you.
Yeah.
And what I'm finding, and please weigh in on this, I'm finding that a lot of women will put ourselves on the clearance rack just to say we have someone. What are
Mm.
your thoughts about that?
100% agree. um you know, in ministry and even once I left ministry,
Hmm.
so much of the identity of a woman in general was not based just on her own merit. I found that even in corporate spaces, once I got married and I was no longer single, I was opened up to this whole other conversation. It's like, oh, so I'm a part of this club now. Because
Wow.
wow, I can like engage in these conversations about relationships and our spouses and the like. And what I found is that society as a whole, particularly American Western society, has very
Hmm.
clear ideas and
Hmm.
ideals about where value is placed, particularly as it relates to women. One is having a spouse, specifically, not even so much a partner, but a spouse, and two is having children. And both of those are challenging because if you find yourself in a scenario where maybe having a partner is not something that you're interested in at this time, and or you are not interested in having children, or you've tried and haven't been successful in having children,
Hmm.
then there's this whole question about your worth and your value. Um, and what I'm really very passionate about in encouraging people to curate the life of their dreams is determining what
Mhm.
your dream life looks like. It may be that your dream life is to be married and have that connection. It may be that your dream life is, I'm actually good, maybe having some companions
Mhm.
that I travel with, some suitors that, I hang out with from time. We go to dinner or we go to events, but I'm really good hanging out with my girlfriends and, us doing whatever that looks like.
Right.
I think that it's so imperative for us as souls, for us as humans to be able to define what um, the greatest good looks like for our life and pursue
Yes.
that.
And it's so funny because people always ask me, how did I come up with authentically peculiar? Well, the baseline was a scripture, First Peter 2:9, called out of darkness into the marvelous light. You are peculiar, a chosen people. So that
Yeah.
peculiar one has always been my name. But living authentically and understanding what I bring to the table as a gift to me.
Mm.
See, I'm a firm believer that if I can't be a gift to myself, I'm not a gift to anybody else because that
Yeah.
means I'm gonna come over a little bit more tattered because I haven't taken the time to know and appreciate me. And one of the things that I'm finding in understanding that knowing and that authentic style of living is showing yourself grace,
Mm.
discussing those fears. So as you took the jump, the leap, that risk, and said, I need to shed this identity over here and I need to get here, what were some of the fears that you had to address within yourself, even getting to know you?
I think one of the prime not I think, I know one of the primary fears was back to the whole space of who are you outside of ministry? Who are
Mhm.
you outside of being a pastor's child? Who are you outside of being Pastor Kelly? But just who are you as a woman? Who are
Yeah.
you as a woman who navigates through these spaces? And I think one of the biggest, not I think, I keep saying I think, one of the biggest fears I know for me was really exploring who Kelly was.
Mhm.
And beyond that, right beyond that, the subtext of, and what are you going to find when you go looking to see who she
Oh, that's
is?
rich. Yeah.
And are you going to then, right after that, once you've committed to it, you've acted upon it and found it, so what do you do with that then?
Mhm.
Where do you go from there? And if that looks so much different from your family, from your friends, from what you have known all of your life
Mhm.
for you to be, are you going to have the fortitude and are you going to prioritize yourself enough to say, I'm going to go for it?
Yeah.
That was probably the primary fear. I've got one right
Okay.
behind it, but I'd say that was probably the primary concern, I'll say, that I
Mhm.
had of taking this journey. And right behind that, then when I did take that journey, I did discover it was a challenge because I felt somewhat bamboozled in that
Mm.
I was given a set of instructions in life,
Right.
not just from my family, but I was given a set of instructions all throughout my educational career. I was given a set of instructions from what society says that I should do, be, have, represent, speak like, talk like, walk like, so on and so forth. And I felt somewhat bamboozled because I felt like I had followed, for the most part, all of the rules, but you all didn't tell me about this whole other world out here. Why didn't
Mhm.
you all tell me that there's this whole other, like, life that I had as a possibility, for me to live? And so, candidly, Marcia, I'm working through some of that now
Yeah.
because I am living quite boldly. Everybody doesn't agree with that outside of this house. Everybody inside of this household is in agreement.
Right.
But everybody outside of this household isn't in agreement. But one of the things that I absolutely am so grateful for is a partner who's on his own evolutionary journey. And even though we're running parallel, they're our own individual journeys, we talk so much, he and I, about how grateful we are for each other,
Hmm.
that we met each other at this time in our life where we're really heading, our trajectory is different from when it was younger, but we're doing it together. And sometimes it's just he and I who get it.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
but
such a
it's
beautiful
beautiful.
thing. Yeah. And I think that ultimately should be the goal. Can
Yeah.
I grow with you as my partner while we respect each other's individuality?
Yes.
That's beautiful.
It's a gift. I am and I do see it as a gift. I'm very grateful because, to your point, you can and I can give you stories of girlfriends of mine in situations, or were in situations where they're evolving, or perhaps
Hmm.
their spouse is evolving, and then there's this schism,
Yes.
there's this delta that gets greater and greater, and sometimes people catch up.
And
In a
sometimes,
lot of instances, they don't.
yeah.
Um, but at the same time, has this connection run the course that it was intended to? And has the
Hmm.
assignment been fulfilled for this connection? And now that it's been fulfilled, we can disconnect. And the
Hmm.
next assignment, that we individually have, we can go on. And so I feel like my husband and I meeting after the age of 40 and then getting married after the age of 40, we met at this pivotal time in both of our lives where we were deciding to live life differently. Because we've talked often that had we met earlier, probably wouldn't have worked
Probably
out.
not. Hmm. Because
Mm-mm.
our growth process, right? You mentioned, Western civilization expectation for women: get married, have children, you know, uh, don't have a personal identity. And so when you fall in those gaps, and that's one of the things my cousin talks about, she's like, I get tired of people asking me, why did I not get married? Why don't I have children? I was like, those are rude questions to be asking.
They
There's
are.
no reason on this planet anyone should ask that question, nor should someone say, well, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you dating?
Yes.
you,
Yes.
you desire to grow in the same. If our growth isn't moving in the same direction, at some point, somebody's going to get left behind.
Mhm.
I'm seeing that as a therapist. I'm seeing that we're working with couples um, who have been married 20 years, 25 years, 15 years, that are at the brink of calling it quits because of what you just expressed. That growth that is not moving in tandem with
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah.
That's huge. And so, if you were to talk to couples or individuals dating now after their 40s and they're trying to get their feel, what would be some advice so that you can encourage that tandem growth?
That's a great question, Marcia. So I know that by career,
Mhm.
you are a therapist, and with therapist, I know there are different terms. Would you
So
say
I'm a mental health therapist.
mental
Yeah.
health therapist? So it is the mental health therapy realm I have great respect for. I
Mm.
re-engaged, as I mentioned, my husband
Mhm.
and I went through individual and simultaneously
Yes.
couples counseling before we got engaged.
Promote that part, please, because I think people don't understand that while you're dating, it is okay to go into therapy individually and as a couple to one, see if you're even jiving and on the same page. I'm dealing with so many people that skip the free therapy, premarital therapy, individual therapy, and now they're saying all of a sudden saying, "Fix me." Say what now?
You should have called me about 3 years ago.
Period. That part,
Yeah.
because I think that people miss the fact, and you said this. My husband and I grew up differently. Our life experiences were different. When
Mhm.
you think about coming together as a couple, you have to bring in those experiences that have molded you and then identify how they can mesh.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because in that 10 months of pre engagement therapy, it was hands down the sole game changer for us. Hands
Mm.
down. I
Mhm.
am a huge proponent of mental health therapy, period.
Yeah.
But definitely to your point that you just mentioned, if this is someone that you are really now, if they just a member of the roster, they on the bench, maybe even if they're the MVP. Once we have narrowed it down and we have dismissed the entire bench, and we are
Mhm.
clear, this the
This
player
it.
right here.
Mhm. Mhm.
This the player we rocking with. Then I think it is the best money you can spend, or if
Yes.
it's free, the best time that one could spend, because I do feel oftentimes, even having officiated weddings myself as a
Mhm.
minister previously, that once you get to the premarital point, everything's really pretty locked and loaded. We're
Mhm.
getting venues, we're getting
Mhm.
bridesmaids, groomsmen. I mean, the train is rolling.
Mhm.
And I feel like oftentimes there's really kind of no turning back. The reason I really like, and our therapist actually coined this, that I really like the pre-engagement therapy is because before we say yes or no, or before you get a ring, or before you even contemplating asking, is this a good match?
Yes.
Is this going to be a good connection? And what we learned was there were things I needed to work on, there
Mhm.
were things that he needed to work on. And then we would come together and say, okay, I've worked on this and you've worked on this. Are we still tracking here?
Mhm.
Or am I here and you're here? Or are you here and I'm still way back here? Are we still
Mhm.
tracking really well? And it was the one, and I will say soul thing, that set us up for success in our relationship moving
Beautiful.
forward. Because, at a certain point in life, when you have lived life, everybody's bringing their 10-piece luggage
Mhm.
set,
Mhm.
particularly as we've lived here longer on earth. We
Right.
accumulate more luggage, but is this luggage I'm willing to let go of? Is this baggage that I want to continue to keep? Is there baggage that is good to keep
Mhm.
as we move forward? So it was by far the thing that set us up for success, to be in a space. I think probably the biggest takeaway in a space of being able to clearly communicate. So,
Mm.
one of the biggest takeaways we learned from that time was, okay, I just need to take a beat.
Uh-huh.
I'm feeling a lot of things, sir. And so I
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
need to take a beat. I'm gonna go work on this over here, and I'm gonna get back with you.
Mhm.
And vice versa, so that we could pull the emotion out of what we need when we need to have tough conversations, and we can come to that with, "Hey, here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I'm
Yeah.
feeling. This is how I received it. Is that how you intended it?" And that still to this day is how we communicate. So the
Oh, I love it.
ability to be able to have that, I love what you said, that when couples are getting to that point, to consider
Mhm.
that individual,
Mhm.
and then possibly couples. I would add to that, I don't want to say that I am not in favor of premarital counseling or
Mhm.
premarital mental health therapy. I would say, though, to do that in isolation without having had some kind of conversation before that, I
Right.
think can be problematic.
I totally agree. I think that it's valuable for anyone. Therapy, as a therapist, I'm going to say therapy is valuable anyway. Um, I go to therapy by choice because I just need that place to drop things. But I
Yeah.
think it's really valuable when you go into therapy individually. One, you probably gain some insight on your whys behind your behavioral responses.
Yeah.
And then I love that term, pre engagement therapy, because it's even before the will you,
Yeah.
it's can we
Yeah.
begin to identify, are we good?
Mhm.
Because by the time you get to me in premarital counseling, and if I'm going to officiate, if you hadn't gone through I'm gonna start calling it pre-engagement. I'm gonna borrow that term. If
Please
you
do.
haven't gone through pre-engagement before coming to me, you're gonna go through some tough 6 weeks, and I hit everything from how did you learn how to be in a relationship? What do you know about relationship? What did
Mhm.
mom and them teach you and daddy and them teach you and all the people in the neighborhood? Have you forgiven mom and daddy now about what you
Mhm.
learned? What about intimacy? How you spend your money? You got kids? What role is your spouse going to play in those kids? We get to the bottom because a lot of times in premarital counseling, they usually go to whoever's officiating and they don't hit all of those things. You
Yes.
have to hit those things if you want to see couples successful. It's more than
Agree.
just praying on a good relationship. It's some work that has to go in. So I love that you all experience that, and it really helped to set a foundation. But you know what I love most? It's the fact that you all identified we couldn't have done this in our 20s and 30s.
Mhm.
We're right where we need to be right now in this space. So if you could give our Gen Xers, I'll say, because I'm deep Gen X, 68, born in 68, encouragement, that 40 up group who are still struggling and thinking I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life, but I really desire a relationship. How would you encourage?
So I would say a couple of things. One thing I would definitely say that I'm learning as I'm engaging with so many people. I love engaging in the comment section because I feel like the comment section is where like the real conversation is.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like is in social media spaces, the actual video is just kind of like the sizzle reel, and
Yeah.
the real conversation, the real meat and potatoes, if you will, is in the comment section. And what I've been learning here recently in the past several weeks, I had a video that, went viral on Instagram and in over 2 million, it's like 2.1 million views right now. And thousands, sorry,
You're
thousands
fine.
of
I've been fighting allergies all day, so we're doing good. We're fine.
thank you. Um, and in the thousands of comments, what I've really learned in the past few weeks is there are a lot, particularly to your point, a lot of Gen X women specifically. I feel a lot of us really believed what we were told and what we were conditioned to know, that you just need to hope and wish and pray.
And baby,
And
way more than that.
it's a whole lot more than that. My
Hmm.
biggest encouragement, Marcia, for particularly women who desire relationships, who desire healthy, just a
Yes.
seat filler, but desire really healthy relationships. One, you've got to be so careful about what you're listening to and what
Hmm.
you're repeating, because in a social media space, in a media, TV, internet space, podcast, YouTube, whatever it is that you're listening to, of course, outside of this podcast, um, that it is really feeding what you want to see, what you want to experience. And so, if you recall, several months ago, there was this big conversation about this video that went viral about a woman who was being taken to the Cheesecake Factory. And we found out that it was a skit and all of those things. But the conversation that ensued
Mhm.
from that was, well, I am worth this essentially dollar amount of
Mhm.
meal and environment and dining experience because of who I am, which then shifted the conversation to your presence being transactional.
Yeah.
Because you're then saying that if it's not this dollar amount, I'm not coming, which is baby what we call a transaction.
Mhm.
And so my encouragement is as far as being careful of what you're hearing, what you're contributing to, what you're watching on
Yeah.
TV, is it really aligned with what you're really believing? And right behind that, number two, I would say is you have got, and this is something I have been like shouting from the rooftops the past few weeks in all of these conversations in the comment section, and I'm learning is, baby, you have got to get out of the passenger seat and get into the driver's seat. I get the hoping and a wishing and a praying. I think that those are great tools that you can have in your toolbox,
Mhm. Mhm.
but they cannot be the only three. Um,
Cannot.
because at the end of the day, if I've got this hammer and I'm just hammering and hammering and hammering, but I'm hammering a screw, and what I really need is a Phillips screwdriver so I can really get that thing in there.
Mhm.
I think we, as Gen Xers, we're a lot of rule followers.
Yeah.
And so we've been told the rules are you wait to be found and you wait to be approached and all of these things, which I suppose there's a time and a place for that. But I think so are losing um, confidence and
Mhm.
losing hope because now
Mhm.
I'm not saying go run every single suitor down,
Right.
tackling them in the produce section. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, baby, you got to get outside.
And
Go.
because they not coming, and this is just happen to be your dude is FedEx or your girl is FedEx, you have got to change your posture
Yes.
and be prepared
Hmm.
for whoever your suitor is.
Hmm.
Because if you're not prepared and they've been working on themselves, they're
Hmm.
going to miss you.
They're going to miss you. And there's a lot of on the job training that you can only get on the job. So
Right.
let's say, because I've talked to a number of women who have, and I've talked to individuals such as what you were just mentioning who haven't done any kind of inner work.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also talked to some who have done inner work and think, okay, I got this all worked out. Now you need to come here ready because I've been working on me. I have my regular mental health therapy sessions, and I've been listening to all the podcasts, and I am where I need to be. But baby, some of that you will not learn until you are in a connection, and that thing gets tested.
And you better
Okay.
have a connection with grace. Grace will
Listen.
have to show up
Yeah.
um, for you and for whoever that person is because we can do the work. And sometimes, to your point, stuff don't come up until we in it.
Yeah. And
And
or it's something that you didn't realize, that you
mhm.
didn't even realize was down there, and that person tap, 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 tap on that one thing that takes you back to 96, and it's like,
Listen.
"Oh, that's still in there? I ain't even
Mhm.
know." But if you weren't in a relationship or if you weren't in conversation, you wouldn't even realize as much work as you may have done, you wouldn't have
Mhm.
even realized that that thing was still down there.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna piggyback off what you said. If you're not feeding your energy for what you want, you're wasting your time. If you're more consumed by the rhetoric that we hear, stuff so it could just get likes, then you're going to end up with stuff that just gets likes
Yeah.
situation because that's what you're feeding your energy.
Yeah.
And my hope is that the beauty of our conversation helps others to understand I need to assess me first,
Mhm.
see where my energy is, what am I feeding me, ask the hard questions. Am I really ready for a relationship? Or do I have that resting face? Like, get away from me. Because how are you going to be inviting if you have this big wall up? Baby, in our age group, ain't nobody trying to knock down walls like that.
No.
So if you want to be in, I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna throw it out here. Listen, stop talking to your girlfriends about what it is that you want, because if they're not on the same page with you, y'all gonna be sitting on the couch together
Mhm.
with the same complaints. I'm just saying, you have
Mhm.
to change, get around some people that are desiring the same type of energy so that you all are complimenting one another and encouraging one another. And get out of that little corner of wanting to be sad and frustrated and all men are this, all women are that. It's time to make some changes. Kelly showed us that. Hey, I had to develop a new identity. I had to leave my comfort zone, relocate, and make some changes to get to know me. If you all don't get anything else out of this podcast, that's the message you need to take. What do I need to do to change and relocate me? You may not have to go demographically, right? But what are you doing to change and relocate yourself in order to honor your actual goal? Is your goal to be in a relationship? Because, baby, Kelly has showed us that 40 is just a number and love can come knocking even when you're sitting at the bar pulling down some strawberry grits,
Yes, yes.
you know? And here's the thing I love is he didn't make you feel bad about eating. You know how some women won't eat in front of men?
Mhm.
He's like, baby, you may need this napkin. I love it. That's so authentic. And I'm certain that you're like, okay, wait a minute. You, I'm gonna have to bring you up from bench warmer. I won't even start you there because bench warmer is on the low level. I'm
Uh-huh.
gonna get you on the roster, and
Yeah.
then eventually you at MVP. I love how you broke that down into those categories. We have to stop trying to readily put somebody in the MVP category when they are bench warmers.
And I had to learn that the hard way
Mhm.
because, as I was mentioning, Marcia, I was really green and new to the dating scene. And so I would, just everybody's name and everybody's phone number,
Mhm.
went into the phone. And I really learned as I went on, like, ooh, okay, yeah. We're gonna
Mhm.
have to do some organization here because not everybody is going to be able to get the same amount of attention, the same amount of time, the same amount of
Mhm.
communication. So yeah, it's a journey though that I really believe that once we commit to that, we create an energy, we create a
Yeah.
world, we create a space that we can then curate. Okay, what do I
Mhm.
want in this space? Who do I want in this space? How
Mhm.
do I want to show up as the best version of me in this
Mhm.
space? What I've learned is, yeah, girl, you need to work on that right there.
That
Or
part.
you do this really well. Like one of the things that I learned along the way was having been in ministry and having served for so long,
Mhm.
was accustomed to being in a position of serving and
Mm.
not necessarily in a position of receiving. And the challenge with that is everybody doesn't honor the fact that you have a servant's heart. Some people will take advantage of that.
Absolutely. But that's
Um,
coming with knowing who you are.
it is. And then being able to, once you're starting to really know who you are and set those real healthy boundaries of, my therapist, who's absolutely amazing. She has so many therapist quotes that I love. But one of the ones in particular was that a boundary is a preference if there are no consequences that are
Mhm.
included. She said, she'll say, so if you ask someone, hey, can you please take your shoes off when you come into my home? I prefer that you leave them at the door, either inside or outside, but don't walk through the house with them. if they walk through the house and you don't say anything, that has just become a preference.
Right.
As opposed to when that person crosses the threshold and are not intimating at all that they are planning on taking on their shoes and they're going to continue on moving through the house, and you say, I asked that you remove your shoes before you move through the house. That's then a consequence. You now have
Mhm.
to leave, or you now have to depart, or whatever that consequence may be.
Yeah.
And I feel like then in the dating scene and the relationship scene, if you're really seeking a healthy love connection, you learn what those boundaries are and you set them up
Absolutely.
accordingly. Yeah.
Absolutely. But Kelly, this has been phenomenal.
I loved
Thank
it.
you. This was so awesome. Listen, you all, go out on all social media platforms. Like, subscribe, follow, comment on some of Kelly's stuff, curated by Kelly Michelle. I'm telling you, to our women, um, look at how that self love comes through. Look at how that authenticity comes through and that self acceptance, and then start gleaning a little bit of it and watch how you actually build yourself up. Kelly, this has been phenomenal. I can't thank you enough. I know that listeners' lives are going to be changed from this conversation. I'm so appreciative of your time and your wisdom and your willingness to just share. Listen, go out there. I'm telling you all, go to her pages, like, comment, share, share, share her information. You won't be um, you won't regret it. That's the best way I could put it. You won't regret it because there's so much out there. Especially, I follow her mostly on TikTok, but I'm gonna go hit the other pages as well, um, because there's so much there. And thank you for being a vessel in this time for our generation, so that we can all keep moving in our authentic self. So you'll be able to see this episode. Don't forget to like, share Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. Episodes drop on Sunday at 8 a.m. on YouTube, Facebook, all those other platforms. They're out there. Um, Give us some feedback. Let us know what you think. We appreciate you for joining in. Kelly, any last words before we close out?
Just thank you for your time. Thank you for creating this space. What you may not know is that scripture has been dear to me for many, many years. I actually have a tattoo that says peculiar on my hand. And so this space that you have created has been curated by you and your authenticity and your genuine nature, and heart to create a space for people to get what they need. So, thank you for inviting me again into your home. It is such a warm and beautiful and safe space. So, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you again. And I look forward to whatever our future brings, because I'm sure at some point we'll cross again. And thank you so much for allowing me to support you like you support me. It's a beautiful exchange. So, you all go out there, like, share, comment, and subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes from either Kelly's page and her new podcast. What's the name?
No filter femme, raw and unfiltered conversations for Black women over 40.
Woo! So, look for it. It's coming soon. I believe the release is sometime in June.
It is mid June. We're just
Mid
waiting to
June.
finalize the episodes.
Nice, nice, nice. So listen, you all have powerhouses. Change what you put into your body, your mind, your mouth, your ears, right? And what you speak, so that you can be your absolute best self. Take good care, and we'll see you on another episode of Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. Thank you for listening to Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. Follow us on your favorite streaming app.